What's up, gamers and geeks? Matt here with That's Fair Podcasting and Gaming Geeks Live. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the initial shutting down now of what is known as Anthem, BioWare's only online game. Now, in 2019, BioWare kind of threw their attempt at an online game. And I won't lie, there for a few hours, it was kind of solid. I remember me, my wife, Mandy, and my boy in England, Atlas, and then another brother that lives here of mine, Bunniger. We all went in, all four of us, and for a few hours, it was pretty solid until it wasn't so solid. Now, everything kind of went stagnant, and we didn't hear anything. And then we started getting promises of what was going to be an Anthem 2.0 update to really go in and fix this. But we never got anything like that. And now we only have, just over a week until the Anthem server finally shuts down for good. Now, I don't know about you, but I only played it for maybe a week tops, and even then it wasn't nonstop. So is it a big loss in the video game? No. But is it something that we should lose out on after having paid full price for upon release? I don't think so. Stay tuned. With the Public Investment Fund, Silver Lakes, and Affinity Partners, all these different firms, the first one, Public Investment Fund being Saudi Arabia, with these three major companies coming in and purchasing EA out, it's no wonder that EA is doing everything they can in their power to alleviate any debt that they still have. EA is in debt to some degree, so they're trying to shave off anything they can. And as you know, keeping an Anthem server open like that costs them money. I guess that's why they're closing it down, to save more money in that regard. But if you are new here, please feel free to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting with Gaming Geeks Live. Please like my video. You help me in that algorithm every time you do. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you don't do any of those and you just hear about this kind of a BioWare and then now an Anthem shutdown, it's not so much a rant, but just what's going on. Thank you for sticking with me. I sincerely appreciate it. Let's start with EA. We know everything we need to know about EA as it was concerned. I mean, they took over the Star Wars brand. I believe it was the Battlefronts, and I'm pretty sure that they have their stamp on the Jedi Survivor and those type, which are good single-player Star Wars games in their own right. I can't give, I can't diss EA for that. But what I can say is when they were doing the Battlefronts, man, was it about fleecing gamers. And EA is about fleecing gamers. They always kind of have been. And they did buy BioWare out, I believe, in 2008. Now, BioWare had launched. I think their last huge launch at that point in time had been Mass Effect in 2007. And then EA would come along and buy out BioWare in 2008. And from everything from 2008 on was stamped with the EA logo. And, let's go between Dragon Age 1 and 2, how it was rushed. I think once EA got their stamp in BioWare, I think from then on it was a slow downhill. Now, that's not to say that even with EA, they didn't reach the pinnacle of their games in Mass Effect 2 in 2010. But I think EA was the slow eroding of BioWare in the long run. I mean, BioWare was strong on their own. I don't understand why they felt the need to have EA buy them out. I mean, BioWare is solely responsible for some of the single greatest story-driven RPGs, single player, of all time. I mean, of all time. Like, you cannot put BioWare in the ranks of some of the greatest RPG developers to ever do it in video games. I mean, realistically, Knights of the Old Republic is my favorite game ever. You had the first Dragon Age Origins that was followed up with an expansion, Dragon Age Awakening, in 2009 and 2010. You had Jade Empire even going back before the Dragon Age. And then, you can't forget the Mass Effect trilogy, especially in 2007 when Mass Effect 1 came out, and then in 2010 when the pinnacle of BioWare would seemingly come out in Mass Effect 2. So it's not like they weren't solid enough on their own. I mean, these guys were the king of RPGs. I mean, they couldn't lose when making a single player RPG. They had no real competition. I mean, there were other good developing companies out there pushing single player RPGs at the time. when you had Bethesda, I believe in 2008 with Fallout 3. You had the Witcher series on the rise. You had other really good RPGs. You had the Fables at this time pushing theirs out. So you had dynamic RPGs coming out towards us, but BioWare had the market cornered. And at that point in time, I want to say from about 2003 to 2004 to about 2010, BioWare was the best in the business. But it would be in about 2017, BioWare would start producing shite. And by that, I mean, we'll go with 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda. It didn't even feel very Mass Effect-y or Mass Effect-ish or whatever you want to say. It didn't feel like Mass Effect to me. Now, had they not put Mass Effect in the title and took out the races like the Krogan and the Turians and other races that were in that and made it its own IP with a fix after the wonky graphics, then you would have probably had a nice standalone RPG for BioWare. But as it was, calling that Mass Effect, it was hard. I played it once through. I've played the trilogy countless times, going through on Renegade and Paragon, going through different love interests and all that. So, you know, the original trilogy of Mass Effect has a replay value that's just through the roof, especially when Legendary Editions dropped, I believe in 2021. But having said that, Andromeda could not stand on its own. If you took Mass Effect out of the title and you just had its own IP with all new alien races, you could have had a standalone IP after the upgrade of fixing what was just terrible, wonky graphics. I mean, it was so hard to play. It was just, you know, it was hard to get into the Rider characters and whatnot. I couldn't even, you know, you'd have to take PB out of the equation, and obviously Cora wouldn't be the Asari Commando or whatever if you did that with your own IP, but you could have done a new bunch of alien races, had Cora in there, and guys, you could have really did a lot with its own standalone IP, but to call that Mass Effect was just a travesty. It was absolute dog shite. And then in 2019, now, in my opinion, when Anthem dropped, I was excited to see if BioWare could actually pull an online game out. And, you know, because they had such, I think, a high success with Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. That's where I met my boy Atlas in London, England. And, you know, so I still have friends from the original 2013 Mass Effect multiplayer. But having said that, Anthem, it didn't do it for me. We tried. There for a few hours, it was pretty awesome, but then everything started becoming far too repetitious. It's almost like they tried to give you a BioWare experience with a little bit of RPG element in with the EA experience of an online, or they're trying to match these other online games, and it just couldn't do it. So in 2019, when Anthem dropped, I think it sold fairly decently, but it was a deceiving thing. So then BioWare would announce that they were going to do basically an Anthem 2.0 update, but it never came to fruition. And honestly, it wouldn't have been enough to save that game because it was so linear in its story. The RPG element was so linear as well. It was lazy. And it, you know, Anthem, you know, I paid full price for it, of course, but you know, that's, at that time I was believing everything BioWare could do no wrong, even after the tragic launch of Mass Effect Andromeda 2 years prior. Then we're going to go into 2024's Dragon Age the Veilguard. Guys, I've said this in past videos, it is the worst, pardon the expression, fucking video game I've ever seen in my life. It was the wokest of woke. I mean, we've had, from about 2022 to about present day, even a little further back with The Last of Us Part 2, they pushed this message, this progressive message in these video games. None has ever done it worse, I think, than Dragon Age the Veilguard. From everywhere you were turned, every corner you turned, there was being pronouns pushed in your face. You had Isabella pulling a barb and punishing herself for using appropriate gender enunciations and punishing herself for not using these pronouns. You had Tosh that just flat out randomly goes, so yeah, I'm non-binary. It was so cringy. I couldn't get over how bad it was. And that ultimately would shave off so many employees at BioWare. I think that BioWare is now looking at just double digits as far as employees. I've heard somewhere from 70 to all the way down to 25 as far as employees. I'd have to look into it. I just know that they're really hurting now. I don't think it's down to 25. I think that'd be too few to be working on a new Mass Effect. But I can say that 75 employees, it was led by Corinne Bush, Dragon Age de Bellegarde, who would ultimately go find work for Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro or one of those stupid woke trash companies that are not doing as great as they could. It is what it is. But yeah, Dragon Age de Bellegarde was an absolute just destruction of BioWare. And now with the limited amount of people you have with Mike Gamble and Mary DeMarle, which these are good people working on the new Mass Effect. I'm happy. I'm somewhat hopeful it's being led by Mike Gamble and Mary DeMarle, who was involved in the Deus Ex video games. So there is hope and light at the end of the proverbial tunnel when it comes to this new Mass Effect. It's just, is it going to be enough? Are they on their last leg? Is it that proverbial Hail Mary? So having discussed my feelings on Dragon Age and how they more or less sabotaged BioWare after that absolute dog shit of a game release back in 2024, it brings ultimately us back to the question, what happens to those of us who purchased Anthem full price in 2019? Now again, is it going to be the end of the world? Am I going to be pressing any issues if I don't get my money back? No, because we're not getting our money back. But what kind of precedent does this set moving forward for people wanting to make online games? These big companies now wanting to make online games, because you can't play these games if they rely heavily on these servers. So what does that mean? We can pay full price for these games, but then if these servers shut down, we're left basically with our junk in our hand. I mean, we paid, but back in the day, I believe at that time in 2019, it was $59.99 for Anthem. I paid it. I figured I paid it. I bought it for me and my wife, Mandy, thinking that, I could trust BioWare. I learned my lesson the hard way. But the point is what happens to us gamers now? With EA shutting down the server permanently just in a little over a week, what does that mean? Now, have I played Anthem since 2019? Fuck no. No. But that's not the point. The point is what is going to happen with all these gamers, like the couple of million copies that may have sold. They made their money and now they're shutting down these servers. I get that these servers, keeping these open, cost money, especially if it's a goddamn ghost town in these servers. But what does that mean for those people? Does this set a dangerous precedent for other companies to literally make these online games that rely on these servers and then fleece you? If they shut it down, you get nothing out of it. What is that? I mean, is it a dangerous situation? Is this dangerous territory? Am I paranoid? What the hell? What are your thoughts? I believe it was Ubisoft's Philip Tremblay, I believe his name is, who once did say at Ubisoft that, get comfortable not owning your games. This has been thrown in the faces of everyone who watches these videos with all these different YouTubers and content creators. We've all mentioned this in the past. Get comfortable not owning your games. Is this what he means? That's kind of the question that arises with Philip Tremblay. Because if these games wholeheartedly rely on these servers, these online servers to play, what happens if these servers shut down? I'll say it for the last time. Does this set a dangerous precedent in the world of video games? It's kind of ironic that we're talking about this. Yes, 6 years later, I haven't played Anthem in 6 years. But what if I decided to get a wild hair at my ass? What if I was that bored? What if I was so hard up? I bought the game. Should I have the right to go in and play that game anytime I want? That's kind of the question. But anyway, guys, that's really all I had. I'd like your thoughts on that. Should they be able to shut down a server after you paid full price for a game? That's the question. Is it going to be any skin off our sacks if they do? No, because I don't think anybody's playing that game anyway. But that's not the point. They can shut this server down after we paid full price, even if it's 6 years later. And I just feel like there's something very unlawful about that. But again, guys, that's really all I have. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please feel free to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting or Gaming Geeks Live. Please like that video again if I've asked. Help me in that algorithm, please. And if you don't do any of those, it doesn't matter. I just sincerely appreciate you being here, watching this video, and give me the feedback. What are your thoughts on this? I'd really, really love to hear from you as I answer everybody. But anyway, guys, thank you so much again, and that's really all I had. And to all you gamers out there, all love, and I'm outro.